All right. Good morning, everyone, and thanks for joining. Just a heads up, as I just posted in the chat, we're gonna be recording this video session and the audio that goes with it, and this will be emailed to you along with the slides within the next day, hopefully by later this afternoon. It will also join our archive of webinar resources on our website at norcalptac.org/webinars. If you have any questions during this webinar, please save them till the end, at which point you can unmute yourself or type your questions into the chat. So thank you again for joining our webinar on writing technical proposals, part 2. And I want to say I know these are uncertain times, especially for small businesses at the moment. So we at PTAC want to send our regards out to everyone who's struggling and to offer our services however we can. Before we hand things over to Mary Jo Juarez, I'd like to tell you a bit about our program and the free services we offer to small business owners like you. My name is James Forrest, and I'm the program coordinator for the Northern California Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is a mouthful, so we call it Norcal PTAC for short. Our very own procurement specialist, Mary Jo Juarez, will be facilitating today's workshop. Norcal PTAC is a nonprofit program set up to help small businesses achieve success in the government marketplace. We're funded primarily by the Defense Logistics Agency with extra grant funding from other state and local funds. All of this is good news for you since it allows all of our services to be provided to the public at no cost. We're hosted by the Humboldt State University Sponsored Programs Foundation up in Arcata, California. And last year, Norcal PTAC actually helped our clients win more than $268 million in government contracts. If you have a small business or pre-venture enterprise located in one of the 15 counties listed here on the map in green, then you're eligible to apply for one-on-one procurement counseling. As I mentioned, our main office is up in Arcata, up towards the top of the state and the coast, but our team is located all over the U.S., including Los Angeles, Nevada, Washington State, and even New Mexico and Virginia. We brought together the best expert specialists from across the country to help you succeed. All counseling can be provided remotely by phone, email, or video conference, so you don't have to leave your office to receive the help you need, which is especially important at this moment now. Every PTAC provides 3 core services, all of which are provided at no cost to you. The first, as I mentioned, is one-on-one counseling. Procurement specialists like Mary Jo here, at any PTAC really, not just us, can help you individually with SAM registrations, getting a DUNS number, any of the government certifications, crafting capability statements, GSA schedules, getting your company cybersecurity compliant, and any other government contracting topic. We can help you understand where your business fits into the government marketplace and how to market yourself. We also have a paid subscription for a program that aggregates all federal, state, local, and school district purchases, so we can provide custom reports to our clients at no cost to help you determine who is buying what you're selling and to help you target your marketing. Second service we offer is regular in-person and virtual workshops like this one on government contracting topics. These webinars and workshops are always free, and unlike our other services, they're open to anyone regardless of their location or client status. Check out our website at norcalptac.org/calendar to find more upcoming events. And the third service we offer is that we can set up our clients with a free bid matching service with daily access to federal, state, local, and even prime contractor opportunities. With this tool, you'll be notified when a bid request is posted that matches your desired criteria, so you can stay on top of the opportunities available to you. To apply for Norcal PTAC services, visit norcalptac.org and click on the Apply Now button on the page banner. Create a profile and fill out all steps 1 through 7 and then hit Save. You will then be contacted by email, typically within 2 business days, and assigned to a procurement specialist if you are accepted. As a note, if you've ever worked with a Small Business Development Center or SBDC in the northern region before, since we share an application portal with them, you'll likely need to send us an email at info@norcalptac.org and we'll send you a special link to apply. From the registration list, it looks like some of you are joining us from somewhere outside of our service area. So do be aware that we are just one of 94 PTACs nationwide, including several others in California. All PTACs provide similar services within different geographic regions. So if you're not located in one of our 15 counties, we encourage you to look up your local PTAC and reach out to them. We've got links on here on the slide, but you can also simply search Find a PTAC in your web browser, and it should be the first option. We also partner with SBDCs who provide more general business assistance, like help getting access to loans. Feel free to contact the phone number or the email address on the banner below if you need help registering to become a Norcal PTAC client or help finding the nearest PTAC to you. All right, so to prevent noise interference, you're all started off muted today during today's webinar, and I'd like you to keep that way until the end. If you have any questions during the presentation, please enter them into the chat window feature and we'll answer your question at the Q&A, which comes at the end. During this end time, you are able to unmute yourself, but please don't do so before then. And we're very excited to hear your questions, so be thinking of good questions as we go along for Mary Jo. All right, and with that, I'll turn it over to our Norcal PTAC Procurement Specialist, Mary Jo Juarez, for the main presentation. Thank you, Mary Jo. Make sure. Mary Jo?
James?
Yeah,
James? Hi.
Yep.
Okay.
Here we go.
Good. Okay.
All right, yeah.
Okay, good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to be here with you this morning. So before we begin our presentation, I'd just like to go through our disclosure with you that the information provided herein is accurate to the best of our ability at the time of this presentation. Some or all of the provisions mentioned herein could or may be changed by the current administration without prior notice. Okay, for those of you who weren't on the training last month, I'd just like to go over briefly and introduce myself and tell you who I am. So I'm a former contracting officer with the Navy with over 20 years of experience in reviewing proposals. And that's key because I am a reviewer of proposals. I am not a writer of proposals. I have reviewed thousands of proposals, and I can sit down and I can clarify what is wrong with the proposal and help you to make it stronger, but I don't write them, just to make sure we understand that. So this presentation, again, is coming to you from the viewpoint of somebody who has reviewed proposals. Okay, so back to my introduction. After I retired, I ended up working with the PTAC. I've worked about 10 years with various PTACs and helping clients in a number of things, including proposals, of course. So our agenda today, we're going to talk about the red team review in more detail than we did last time. We're going to go through 100 words to avoid in your proposal. We're going to talk about fluff. And we're going to discuss some systems that you can be preparing now in advance to have things ready when you get one of those RFPs that only gives you a matter of a week or so to put your proposal together. And our words of the day are going to be qualify and quantify. I always like to have a word or two for you to walk away with. If you don't remember anything else, if you remember qualify and quantify, it's going to make a difference in the preparation of your proposal. Okay. So a quick review. Last month we talked about the different team members on a proposal team. So the blue team would be the people preparing the technical proposal. The green team would be those who have input on the price proposal. The red team would be an independent review, and the white team would be the one who approves and signs. And for a small business, many times you or a couple people do all of this. The only one that I would suggest that you have someone else do would be the red team in independent review. And that could be just somebody in your business who hasn't looked at your proposal before, or it could even be your PTAC, because that's one of the services that we provide that we're willing to assist you with. So writing a proposal it seems like it's different from writing anything else, whether it's a novel or a newspaper article or a blog or whatever. But there's some similarities in everything that you write, and that's because you become so ingrained and it becomes such a part of your being when you put so much effort into writing something, especially a proposal where you're trying to show your best and you're trying to meet the requirements and everything else. And if you're the team, or there's a couple of you who are the whole team, you spend so much time working on it that it's really difficult for you to determine the inconsistencies and that you've said everything that you think you are saying. And that's why the red team, in a nutshell, is so important, to have that other set of eyes and ears and who are reading it and listening to what you've written and putting up a hand and saying, hey, wait a minute, this is what I read. What did you really mean? So there are 5 different elements that we're going to talk about in red team review. The first 2 are completeness. Is every requirement in the RFP fully addressed? And consistency. Is everything formatted the same way? Are you consistent throughout with your terms of measurements and meeting the RFP requirements? Are you consistent with your name? And we have an exercise in a little bit that's going to show you a real proposal and what happened when the same names were not used. So as you're addressing completeness and consistency, some points to remember are to look at your checklist. Do you remember last month we suggested that you write a checklist, which would be going through the RFP when you first get it and making a list of every requirement in there? Have your red team reviewer, whoever that is, even if it's your PTAC, look at the RFP or look at least at the checklist and make sure that the page count is right, that everything is in there that needs to be in there. If there are tabs, that those are in there. So just kind of bounce off that checklist a little bit. Make sure you've got the correct title, project number, that type of information. And I was involved in a situation where, when I was a contracting officer, where the contractor that we wanted to award to was technically acceptable, had the lowest price. It was a company that we wanted, but you know how everybody cuts and pastes everything these days? They had used part of a previous proposal, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. We, you know, if it meets the requirements of the RFP, we encourage you to do that. But they had not, when they did their cut and paste, they had not corrected the title and project number, and they had left an old title and project number. And in fact, the project was at a different location than the one our current one was at. And what happened is we as a technical review board couldn't make that decision because of that little piece of misinformation in there. And we had to send it up to our legal office for review, who told us that that was enough inconsistency to throw doubt on whether the contractor was actually applying for this project or another project, you know, whether they were applying for the current project we had out there. A number of us didn't agree with that determination, but it was made by our legal office, and they didn't get the award. So hence, just a little illustration of why this is all so important. Check and make sure your general appearance, you know, the margins, your white space, excessive text, and we'll go over some of that in just a minute. Names, acronyms, titles, and again, whether the requirements are addressed. The next 2 items we're going to look at are compliance. Basically, does everything conform to the relevant guidelines and regulations? Do you explain what you're going to be doing, or do you mirror back to the client's requirement back to them? And there's a huge difference there. Do you say, okay, I'm going to do this, or do you explain, this is how I'm going to do this? Coherence. Is there too much use of technical jargon? Can a layman read and understand? This is really important because your technical review team is an odd number of people. You know, these are usually 3 or 5, depending on how big the project is. It can be more, usually not less. You will usually have possibly 1 technical person in that room, and everyone else will be a contracting officer or another position description, but they're not going to be technical. So when you work with your technical jargon in a proposal, you have to, it's a really fine balance. You have to have enough technical information there, but to some degree it has to be toned down enough to where lay people can understand it. And one example of that is when I was a brand new contracting officer, thank goodness I was an intern, by the way, and I wasn't warranted as a contracting officer yet. There's always a saving grace when these things happen. But the proposal was for dolphins out at one of the Navy bases. And I thought, well, yeah, I know what a dolphin is. You know, I've always wanted to go swimming with them, but I don't know what they have to do with the Navy. Well, dolphins as animals really do have a purpose with the Navy, believe it or not. But in this particular case, a dolphin is the piece of equipment that a submarine ties up to. And being a lay person and being in the process of learning what I was doing, I had no clue. I learned really fast. But again, just to emphasize to you that there are those situations that do occur. And one thing I'd like to offer out there, because your PTAC understands this and we get the balance that you need to have between both. If you were to send me a proposal to look at and I couldn't understand it, we would be doing some talking and I would guide you as to how to tone that down a little bit or rephrase it so somebody else could understand. One of the services that we do offer is for instance, of course, we will work with you on a current proposal, but sometimes time is of essence for me to get the review comments back to you and you to get them incorporated, and it's not really a good learning tool. But if you had an old proposal and an old RFP and you wanted to send it in, we would be happy to sit down and evaluate that proposal that you prepared and then go through the areas that we could help you strengthen it. And a lot of that information, as I mentioned before, can be used on another proposal. So when we're looking at compliance and coherence, again, is a required information addressed? We've talked about don't mirror something back, state how, not what. Is the information relevant? Statements need to be qualified and quantified, and those are our words today. For example, if you're a construction company and you say you have a large pool of equipment, what does that mean to me? That means nothing to me. Do you have 5 dump trucks or do you have 200 dump trucks? If you're an IT company and you provide employees to man the different agencies' IT service desks, and you say you have extensive experience, what does that mean to me? It means nothing. And when I'm rating that, that's not going to count against you, but if somebody else says, we have put 5 people in place, or we have put 20 people in place, or we have 200 people working, it's just the fact of qualifying and quantifying that makes a big difference. Tell a story. And again, be careful with the technical jargon. Use it, but use it wisely. Make sure your sections build on each other without contradiction. Have the person reviewing it make sure they can understand it and it flows and it's easy to read. Okay, the last one for us to look at is correctness. Are there grammar or spelling errors? Now, spell check is a wonderful tool, but you have to just review your spell check almost it's kind of a different review. Let me give you an example. That's the best way to explain it. So when I was preparing something for a client last week, I used spell check and everything was perfect. And then I went through and did a final review of what I had written. And you know on the keyboard how your O and your I are really close together and your fingers could hit either one of them or slip or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what happened, but something happened. So I had, instead of writing down that the client had fixed something, I had typed in there that the client had foxed something. And I find myself more often than not getting myself into those situations, especially if I'm typing really fast, and spell check doesn't necessarily catch it, and the grammar review doesn't necessarily catch it, which is kind of discouraging. But on the other hand, it doesn't happen too frequently, just so you're aware that those things do happen. So we'll be going through words here in just a few minutes for useless, vague, boastful, all of that type of repetitive words and statements. I'm going to give you some actual examples that will help you. So as you're reviewing for correctness, again, spell check, grammar check, we'll give you the 100 words and phrases not to use. Use your white space, carefully. Balance out for ease of the reader so that the reader can take a look easily. If you've got bullets, if you've got photos, a photo will have, a photo's worth 1,000 words if you've got the right photo in there and there's no safety issues or inconsistencies in the photo, which I've actually seen happen in proposals. But use your, kind of balance out your proposal. Use your white space so that the reader's eyes are not going to get tired. Professional appearance. This is not a thesis. Commas are free. 2 spaces after a period is not criminal. And maximize the use of your space. Words to avoid. I've mentioned in our last training that there are some words that are used quite frequently by proposal writers who don't know your industry, and not meaning to offend anybody, that this is a type of thing that stands out to an agency reviewer who's doing a lot of review of your proposals. Is pretty easy to understand. So when someone doesn't necessarily know what they say, they fill it with, "We understand your requirements." Well, okay, that's great, but that doesn't tell me how you're going to make my requirements happen. As appropriate, as necessary, within the time frame. We're a full service organization, okay? We will comply with the EM 385, and the EM 385 is the construction safety standard, and they call it their Bible in essence. So it's as simple as, instead of saying we will comply with the EM 385, going in and putting a little paragraph saying, to comply with the EM 385, we will have safety meetings every morning, and we will have this, and this posted. And we will be, just a bullet list of different things you can do to comply with that. It doesn't have to be in a lot of great detail, but it's a difference between mirroring back that you're going to do something and actually showing that you know what you're talking about. Weak, timid words that cause doubts. I believe, I think, I feel. I feel is used all the time, and it doesn't matter so much what you feel, it matters what you do. Strive, attempt, intend, might, may, can. Boasting words. These are a real delivery trap, and as we go through these, I'm going to give you a couple examples of situations you don't want to get yourself into. First one, top quality, world class. What does that mean to you as a contractor and to me as a reviewing contract officer? Everything in our world changes daily. And if you were to put a statement in there, top quality, world class, I might be expecting one thing and hold you to that because that's what I paid for, and you might be providing something else. So it's always better to do a description and explain what you mean by top quality, world class. Just put it right out there. That way, if that changes, you're not going to be held to whatever the new is. Uniquely qualified, best of breed tools. I never knew tools were breeding. However, that's one which we used to see quite frequently. Have industry standard processes. You have your processes, and they might be taken from an industry standard, but they're tailored to fit your business. Have state-of-the-art technology. And again, suppose that you put that in and you're thinking that everything you're going to work in is Apple. And I'm reading that and I'm thinking Microsoft. And you did not price your proposal to do a switch from Apple to Microsoft. And this is just a really out of the world example, but just to show you, technology in particular changes daily. So if you're going to do something, put in there what you're going to do and price that, and then you'll be covered, and I'll know what you're going to do, and I'll know the price I'm paying for that. And then if I award the contract to you, speaking as an agency, and I come back to you and I say, you know, it's been 3 months since we awarded this contract, and I'd really like to have this technology instead of what you provide, then I need to pay you to switch and get the new technology. So just these little things, these words can lead you into a lot of cost. So kind of beware. Leaders in their market, expert, and guarantee. Vague, useless words. This first one. Okay, so imagine yourself that you're on the review team and you're in a room with 5 people. And the room usually didn't have a window because they wanted you reviewing proposals. They didn't want you staring out the window or thinking what a lovely day this is. So you're in a room with 5 people you may or may not know, and you're reviewing the 29 proposals we talked about in our last training. And every single one of them starts out with, "We're pleased to submit this proposal." By about the 15th cover letter, hoping somebody will say, "Well, I didn't want to do this, but my boss made me." We understand that you're pleased to submit the proposal. We understand that you're enthusiastic, you're committed, and you're looking forward to working with us. That's all a given. In those cover letters and in the beginning of your proposal, just follow the instructions as to what the client wants in there. It's much easier to read than to have to sort through all of this stuff. This is a really hard thing for both large and small businesses to kind of get away from. But if you need some help, call your PTAC. We can help you with this. Okay. Redundant words, actual experience, past history, advanced planning, close proximity, on and on, responsible for managing. These are, actual experience, history, past, pick a word. Kind of self-evident here. Mirroring statements, we've already talked about the EM 385 or OSHA standards. We will implement the 3 phases of quality control. Okay, if that's all that's in your proposal, that does not tell me how you're going to do that. You could write a paragraph about, we will implement the 3 phases of control, quality control, by bullet, something to that nature, to show that you understand it and you're able to actually perform it. Tell me how. That makes a huge difference. Unnecessary qualifiers. Again, these are words that take up space in your proposal that sometimes show that you may not understand exactly what we've asked of you, or it can show that you have somebody who doesn't understand exactly what you do. It goes without saying, absolutely certain, now and again, seamless operation. Slang, we see a lot of, we are hitting the ground running, and not quite so frequently, but occasionally rolling out the red carpet with seasoned managers, okay? I don't know what seasoned managers means. Do they have 1 year of experience? Are there people you're going to hire? Or do they have 100 years of experience all put together when you put 3 or 4 of them together? Qualify and quantify. Legal words: assure, insure, insure, guarantee. If you guarantee something, you're going to be doing it. May, shall, should. The government is generally going to tell you that you shall be doing something. They're not going to be using may and should. So just be very careful how you use these words. I'm not telling you not to use them. I'm just telling, just suggesting wisdom in using them. Needlessly long words. Here are some words and some suggestions to replace them. Illustrate. Instead of using illustrate, use show. It's easier to read. It's perfectly understandable. Substantial is large. A number of, several. If you're not going to count out, if you're not going to qualify it with 5 or 6 or 7, instead of saying a number of, just say several. Irregardless, I know it's not a word, but I really kind of like that word. So again, this is everything that we're suggesting in this webinar is for you to take a look at and see what fits your business. You're going to have to use your own business judgment with it. Okay, hidden verbs. Arrived at the conclusion. What about saying I found? I came to an agreement. I agreed. Gave a demonstration. Demonstrated. Has a need for. I need. I held a meeting. We met. Again, it's just going back to what makes sense, which is going to give you more space in your proposal to explain how you're doing something. Okay, so exercise number 1. I will say that I usually don't go through with a narrative like this particular slide is and read the whole slide. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that this time, but I'm going to explain after the sentences what should change in here to kind of help you, give you an example of this. So Anderson Hill Construction is pleased to present our technical qualifications for the children's design build in China. If we were in an actual classroom setting, I would have given you the RFP and I would have given you their proposal, and we would be practicing how to evaluate it. And the first thing with this one is that was the wrong project. Our team's experience management. What does that mean? Relative experience and highly rated past performance demonstrates a proven history of providing well-managed, high-quality, cost-effective contract execution. Oh my goodness, that was hard to say. That hurts my head to read it, and it means absolutely nothing. It's all important information, but it would be even more important if you had a little bit of more information about our team's management staff with over 30 years, or however many years of experience, relevant experience in building hospitals. Just qualify and quantify. We feel, there's that annoying little word in there, we feel our team's qualifications are precisely the attributes the government is looking for, on and on and on. Well, it doesn't, there again, you're writing what you want to say and not what I want to hear. Because what you feel doesn't matter as I'm sitting with your proposal and I'm sitting with a review, the review criteria, and I'm reviewing it. We're the ones who are going to determine whether your qualifications are precisely the attributes that the government is looking for. Okay. Hopefully that helps a little bit with understanding how a review process works. Now the second one, under successful project experience, AHC has successfully managed the design and construction of numerous projects. How many projects? Is it 100 projects? Is it 2 projects? Either one might still qualify you. It just makes it so much easier when you're having to read the narrative to find a number in there that support, that's the same number, or somehow supports the past experience, you're also going to have to submit as separate documents, or the past performance. Let's go down to AHC both develops critical healthcare infrastructure and trains Chinese engineers and project managers in executing development projects of this type. This doesn't even apply to what the RFP is. Working closely with local government, AHC develops programs, oversees design consultants during the design process, and manages the construction of the project from inception to completion, including procurement of equipment and furnishings. What do you mean by develops programs? And how many design consultants do you oversee? The procurement of equipment and furnishings. Did you buy one desk or did you buy 200? So if I take this paragraph as it stands right now and I remove the fluff from it, the highlighted in yellow is what really matters. Okay. You can go on to write an extensive amount, to provide and write an extensive amount of information to support these two sentences. And by pulling, for instance, by pulling that last sentence up to the beginning of the paragraph and combining it with that replacement of general hospitals, clinics, homes, schools, that might be a much stronger start rather than a bunch of fluff. Okay, so basically, remove the fluff, qualify, and quantify. Okay, exercise number 2. Anderson Hill Construction, AHC, is a 503 nonprofit incorporated under the laws of California. I'm going to skip through this a little bit. The original name of Anderson Hill Construction is John Anderson, Inc. AHC's federal EIN is Anderson Construction manages and controls Anderson projects. Additionally, Anderson Hills and its affiliates are registered and incorporated in the countries where it operates. Together, the organizations are known as Hillworks. This is an example of a firm that cannot follow the instructions. They're telling me what they want to say about their company, but not what I want to hear. They're not saying what I want to ask for. If you look at this, there are 7 different company names in this one paragraph. Anderson Hill Construction, AHC, John Anderson, Anderson Construction, Anderson Projects, and Anderson Hill Works. I would not know who to make the contract award to with this in a proposal because there's so many other companies here. There's not a chart that shows who's on top, who's on bottom, how they're all connected. Last month, we did an organization chart, and if we had put this information into that organization chart, at least I would know who's in charge and who to award to. But you can also do that same information in a narrative. If Anderson Hill Construction is the one that I want to award to, and AHC is what they're going to abbreviate to save some space, that's fine. But explain that as Anderson Hill Construction, I have the ability to go back into these companies and pull the work that they're able to do. You know, that I have depth is different from just throwing everybody's name out there. As a reviewer, I can't make any assumptions about this. From looking at it, I can assume that this company has a lot of companies that support it where they can draw either people or resources or equipment from. I'm not allowed to make that assumption in the review process. Therefore, if you're not using a chart, an organization chart, which is perfectly fine, at least in your narrative, spell it out so that it's totally clear. I just can't tell who's really bidding here, and I can't make that assumption. And it also looks to me like they really can't follow directions, which is a concern. Okay. Exercise number 3. JAI is a program of Anderson Hill Construction. What does that mean? What does it mean that they're a program? It's one of the oldest, largest, and most reputable international development organizations in China, okay? Again, define, qualify and quantify. It's been licensed in China by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, approved for the program and projects for over 15 provinces in China. They have a representative in Beijing and 5 project offices with 70 staff. You're lowering my risk a little bit by doing some qualifying and quantifying here by telling me you have 5 offices with 70 staff. But it doesn't, this paragraph doesn't explain to me how this matters to what we're doing here. JHI has designed and delivered world-class programs in clean water, education, and health. Over that time, we built a strong team with excellent competence in all areas and a reputation for quality, integrity, and value. Be concise and clear. I would imagine that there's information that supports what's here that could be put in a bullet form with a very strong sentence that would have mattered. It's just not here. And again, I can't make any assumptions. So I need to, as a reviewer, I need to make sure that you can explain what it is that you really want to convey to me. Now, with everything that's going on in the world today, this is an excellent opportunity to put some systems in place that can help you prepare so that when you have a RFP that comes out, it will help to save you from scrambling for that information, because some of your information, once you have it in an either electronic file or however you want to save it, may need to just be tweaked a little bit, but it won't need to necessarily be updated. So past performance, regardless of your industry, is how well you did something. Prior experience is what you did. So if you start going through and even taking your last 5 projects and you put together a template, a file that talks about the past 5 projects that you did, a different write-up for each one of them, and then you add the past performance on how well you did it, because usually those 2 are going to be called out separately in the RFP. And then you toss into the folder any photos or anything else that can help you support that. This will just help you to get ready for the next RFP that's coming up when you do have a little downtime. And right now might not be the best time for you, but just something to keep in mind in order to help you as you go forward to save some time. And if you need help with this, your PTAC is always willing to either review what you put together. Sometimes we can even suggest a template depending upon, actually we can suggest a template depending on, specific where you can pull the information in and then you can fine tune it for your industry, just to have this information there. And seriously, the size of the jobs doesn't matter so much in this particular instance is having that information available for you to be able to pull out of a file, go in and fix it however you want to. If you want to do a little bit of updating, if you want to make it relevant to what the RFP is asking for, sometimes just adding that relevant and those relevant words is all that you have to do, but the basic information is in place and ready for you. So just something to think about here as we as we're going through this. Now, on our next slide, I'm going to, in just a minute, give it to James to go over, but I do need to apologize. I worked with this slide yesterday and apparently had a hiccup. The first item on here has already gone through, and James is going to talk a little bit here in just a minute about how everything else has been delayed with a to be determined date. And again, I apologize that that's not on the slide for you. Can I turn it back over to you, James?
Sure. Thank you so much, Mary Jo. Can you all hear me fine?
What's that?
Can you hear me all right? All right.
I can hear you all right now, yes.
Great. All right. Yeah, so because, of course, of the whole COVID-19 thing, we've canceled our in-person matchmaker and the Procurement Expo. We do have a date for the matchmaker, I believe, a tentative date in October. And because of these two webinars, the second two, not the one that's already passed, how to prepare for a matchmaking event and Power Pitch, those are prep webinars for the matchmaker. We've also rescheduled those for October. So we're looking at October 7th and 8th for those webinars. I believe the matchmaker is on October 15th. So stay tuned for that, and we don't have a date for the Norcal Procurement Expo yet. So do stay tuned to that. So I'll open it up to questions now. You have two modes of entering your question. You can either type them into the chat as long as you select to everyone, and we will, I will read those aloud to Mary Jo. And you can also unmute yourself as long as you do it one at a time. Give right of way to others who are there first. Unmute yourself and ask a question so we can all hear you. So I'll start going through the questions. We have a lot of questions about whether the slides and webinar video will be available. And yes, we always record our slides and our presentations, and they are available along with our past archive of webinars on our website at norcalptac.org/resources. So go ahead and check that out. Do we have any questions regarding content? Someone asked above in the compliance section should be mirror or explain, but then I think they wrote that they got an answer.
Okay, good.
All right, someone asks here, I have to reply to a FedEx EFI P&D opportunity. Do you guys help reviewing that? Do you know what that is, Mary Jo? I'm not sure.
Can you say it again, James? I'm not sure, but we can pretty much help review.
A FedEx EFI P&D opportunity. Oh, sorry, RFI.
Oh, RFI, yes, of course.
All right, great. Yeah, we can help with that.
Especially for our clients.
Okay. All right, we have another question. This one's from Susan. RFPs often include guidelines for margins, such as 1 inch on each side. But does that mean headers and footers can't be closer than 1 inch from the edge?
I would have to take a look at the RFP with you, because it could be either way. And a lot of times they mention they don't necessarily call out the headers and footers per se, but I'd have to read the wording around the margin to make sure. If you could send that to one of your PTAC counselors next time you have it, because each one's a little bit different. In some cases, they want a strict 1 inch margin all the way around. And in other cases, they just want the margins on the side.
All right. All right, we're getting some questions now. Great. Andy M asks, for construction proposals, do you suggest listing the pages on the plans of the scope of work you will be performing to cover other potential work that may arise?
Okay, I'm not sure I understand. Can you read that to me again, James?
Sure, yeah. For construction proposals, do you suggest listing the pages on the plans of the scope of work you will be performing to cover other potential work that may arise. Listing the pages on the plans of the scope of work you'll be performing to cover other potential work that may arise.
I'm not sure I understand completely, but my advice would always be to provide exactly what the RFP asks for, because that's what the reviewers are going to be evaluating, is to make sure you've responded to the RFP. Anything additional, for instance, on our last webinar last month, we showed in the organization plan how for a construction matrix or job contract where there might be additional work called out, we showed how in the organization chart to call out that work without knowing exactly what it is. And I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but basically just respond to what the RFP asks for, and when you're asking your PTAC counselor to review it, go ahead and ask that question.
Consider that an outside call.
They submitted a clarificatory comment as well, saying, for example, A0.1, A1.1, A1.2, etc. I'm not sure if that helps narrow it down for you, Mary Jo.
Yeah, the only thing I'm thinking of, James, is whatever the RFP asks for, they need to respond to. Without seeing it, it's just really hard.
Okay, yeah. We have a question from Tad here. What is a fair expectation of a response from a proposal review? What is a fair expectation of any prep explanations of RFP, RFQ before submitting a bid? Guidance here or methods?
Change it if you choose to do so. If you just want to tell me what it is, I will do it for you.
Does that make sense, Mary Jo?
Say it to me once again. I'm not sure.
I do want to request of the participants to keep, when you're asking questions in writing, just make sure that they're as clear and concise as possible. What is a fair expectation of a response from a proposal review? It's quite a general question. That's the first one.
Do you mean from your PTAC?
I'm not sure. Tad is just asking what's a fair expectation of a response from a proposal review. And the second question is, what is a fair expectation of any prep explanations of RFP-RFQ before submitting a bid?
Okay, so for your PTAC as a PTAC counselor, I like to, if it is at all possible before you submit your proposal, if I can have a week or at least 4 or 5 days to review it and get back to you so you can incorporate comments if that is the question that's being asked.
It's not, Tad, if you could rephrase your question, it's not sure if you're asking about timing or who is responsible for the proposal review. Are you talking about your own team or a PTAC? What kind of expectation are you asking, or the agency? And what kind of expectation do you mean? PTAC explanation is good. But do you mean timing? I mean, I think Mary Jo already covered that. She would like a week.
Yeah, and the more time you can give us, the more time we can help you to understand what we're suggesting. If you do have something that's very quick, especially with an RFQ or something that nature where they turn over so quickly, and you have a day and you send it in and we can do it, we will do it. I've done plenty of those. But if it's a significant narrative that you have to put together, and you do have the time, so much of this is wishes on my part, and then what the actual realism is that the client is giving you. And we as PTACs, you know, I would never say, oh, we absolutely have to have a week. My dream would be to have a week, but if it's a shorter time period than that, we definitely are willing to work with you on it.
All right. And then Tad follows up by asking, how about city or agency response?
We review those, and as much time as you can give us. With those, you're not going to have as much time usually as you would with a federal agency, although you don't have a whole lot of time with anything anymore. But no, we're adaptable, and James has been really good, and if something comes in with a short time frame, and for instance, I can't get to it, I go to James and say, is there anyone else out there who can help me? And so he takes care of all of us and you by doing that, performing that service for you.
Absolutely, and you can do us a favor by sending us information that you need reviewed as soon as you have it, giving us a heads up, so we can work around our counselor schedules.
And you know, actually, if it's an RFP that you plan to respond to, but you don't have the response completed just yet, send me the RFP, because I actually have to review 2 documents. As PTAC counselors, we have to review the RFP and your response. So if you send it in to me and say, hey, Mary Jo, I'm working on this, it at least allows me to go through and mark up the RFP and do my little chart with the RFP. Then when you send your response in, I can review it much quicker for you.
Perfect. All right, Chris asks, is there any type of base template available at PTAC for proposal responses, RFPs? Something to get started, or is it all so case by case that it would not make sense to have this base template? That's a good question. Do you know, Mary Jo? I'm not sure.
And, you know, James, I was going to say that might be a really good question we can talk about at the next team meeting or something. My gut feeling is it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, with the exception of pulling that information I had talked about in that one slide together on work that you've done in the past. But I'm not the only one reviewing proposals, and we all review different types. So if there's some way we could get back on that, that would be good.
Yeah, I'm not aware of a template response, and of course also, I mean, as you intuited, Chris, different RFPs will ask for different kinds of responses. So it may not make sense to have a general template except in the most loose sense, which may or may not be helpful. But I'll take a look into that and let you guys know. Do we have any other questions?
The one thing we don't want to do is send you a template and you use it, and it's not what the RFP asked for, but because we sent it to you, you're confident that it's going to work. We don't want to do that. Exactly. Key is to follow the instructions as close as possible, specific to the RFP. All right. Well, we're getting close to running out of time. Does anyone have one last question? Okay. Well, thank you, Mary Jo, and thank you for joining, everyone. We'll cut things off now. You should have just received an email from us, or will be receiving one very soon. This will have a link to a satisfaction survey that we'd really appreciate if you fill out. This is actually very important for us. Our funder likes when we get these responses from our webinar participants. So just click on it. It takes a second. Let us know how you felt about the webinar. As promised, there will be a recording of today's webinar, and the slides will be posted as well. The email I send out to all of you will give you a link where you'll be able to find these resources no later than tomorrow. Once again, thanks for joining our Writing Technical Proposals Part 2 webinar, and have a great day and stay healthy, all of you. Bye-bye. Thank you, James.